Hello, everybody. You can hear me in the headphones? Yeah? Very good. So, a warm welcome to all of you to our session on biodiversity conservation and value chains, creating spaces for collaboration between NGOs and business. My name is Andreas Getkant. I will guide you through this session. We have a hybrid session, which is to say that we have panelists here with us in the front, and we have also people from India to Canada also, which will join us on the screen. So I'm very happy that we could at least make our session. Here you see our friends all connected. Hello everybody on the TV.
And I don't think I have the link. If you can put it on the chat.
Since we will have a very
put it on the chat right now.
a very full agenda, I would like to start immediately with our welcome
Let us know if
remarks from Mrs. Hofen. Mrs. Hofen is the managing director of Gsat, and she's a leading German development agency, which is a leading German development agency, Gsat, for what I'm working. And she is development economist with more than 30 years of experience in international experience on the focus on sustainability and climate. And from 2022 to 2014, she served as World Bank Group Executive Director representing Germany. She had various high-level positions in the BMZ, in the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, as Director General focusing on global health, displacement and migration, climate protection and sustainability. And she co-initiated also the NDC partnership, which supports countries in its climate action. So we are extremely pleased to have Ms. Hofen as the Managing Director of Gsat with us, and she will give a welcome remarks now for all of us. Thank you, Ms. Hofen.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues. Again, many thanks for having me, and many thanks to Andreas Getkant and his team for organizing this event, and also for this very kind introduction. I'm really delighted to be here because I think this event actually focuses on a thematic area that is going to gain, I think, prominence even more in the future. It has been relevant for many, many years, quite frankly. And I would guess that those here in the audience are well aware about that. But certainly, this event is again a proof that this community is growing and that we have now already lessons at hand why it is so important to work on value chains, to work together with NGOs and the private sector, so in multi-stakeholder approaches. So this event is divided into 3 rounds: the why, the what, and the how, related especially to the role of NGOs and their support of business conservation actions. And as Gsat, we are very much looking forward to the various contributions from the private sector and the public sector. Of course, we know, and Andreas Getkant has already raised this, that of course not all of those that would like to discuss with us could actually make the journey to Marseille, but we are very happy that they can join us in the virtual space. The beginning of this decade is a highly important phase of biodiversity. As I said yesterday, the parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity are currently developing the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, the GBF as it is called, for adoption at the next conference of the parties. And of course, the IUCN Conservation World Congress is a very important milestone on this path. And quite frankly, and this may be the same case for you, in the corridors, at the margins of the official meetings and the side events, many people exchange views and assessments. Where do we stand? How much actually consensus has already been reached? Is there really a chance to forge consensus about a very robust and strong CBF, which is so urgently needed to spur implementation on the ground? Also in society, the awareness of the importance of biodiversity and concern about its loss has increased significantly over the past years. For example, the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report 2020 identified biodiversity loss as one of the top 5 risks to humanity, with an increasing trend compared to previous years. Specific aspects such as insect loss and threats for pollination, pollution of the oceans, or the importance of biodiversity for assessing risk of investments have received particular attention. And of course, and we all have actually seen the impact, COVID-19 has brought attention to the linkages between biodiversity, animal health, and human well-being. Besides, the private sector is also increasingly aware of the importance of biodiversity and the risk of biodiversity loss for business activities. And this possibly is something a little bit newer than other phenomena. The number of initiatives and business associations in which companies and other key actors are committed to mainstreaming biodiversity in the private sector has increased significantly in recent years. On the one hand, the services provided by nature are at the basis of many economic processes. And on the other hand, economic activity alters biodiversity and ecosystems, often in a negative way. A promising approach to promote biodiversity-friendly production, a promising approach is to promote biodiversity-friendly production and commercialization. This involves the analysis of value chains and identifying opportunities to reinforce positive impacts on biodiversity and ecosystems and/or reduce negative ones. The Private Business Action for Biodiversity, PBAB, is its abbreviation. We love abbreviation in this community, I think so. So the Private Business Action for the Biodiversity project has been testing and further developing instruments to promote biodiversity-friendly production and commercialization with concrete activities in 3 partner countries: Brazil, India, and Mexico. In 4 pilot projects, the project implemented promising instruments and tools. Among others, the project helped establish a multi-stakeholder initiative, for instance, on carnaúba wax in northeastern Brazil. In India, the project has developed and tested biodiversity action plans for the cultivation of spices, cardamom, nutmeg, pepper, cinnamon, and chili in the biodiversity hotspot Western Ghats. Together with partners from the private and public sector, the project analyzed the results through a very systemized process. Since 2016, the project has been implemented by GIZ on behalf of the International Climate Initiative, ICI, of the Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, BMU. Among others, the Global Nature Fund and the Union for Ethical Biotrade have been important implementation partners of the project. With this event today, I would like to emphasize NGOs' critical role in strengthening and supporting businesses in their biodiversity conservation actions and in adapting value chains in a sustainable manner. We are convinced, and we have seen this from our experience for many, many years and in many, many countries that environmental NGOs often serve as an effective player within joint conservation strategies, together with governments and companies and international partners. For instance, when they operate as evaluators in an independent monitoring process, or when they execute environmental education programs or awareness-raising campaigns. And sometimes they also they can build a crucial bridge to local communities, to inclusiveness, and actually to an understanding what works and what doesn't. When we have somehow to match and to balance actually perhaps conflicting goals between the necessary nature conservation and the need to also to maintain livelihoods and a living for local communities and people. This event aims to create space for collaboration within the triangle between NGOs, governments, not government or partially government, governments, yes, government, and I welcome Dr. Paulus from the BMU, governments and businesses, and should inspire and motivate NGOs to proactively support companies in their biodiversity conservation actions. In addition, this event showcases instruments and successful examples of biodiversity integration into business operations and makes the case, and this is the crucial sentence, to funders and businesses why NGOs need support to fulfill their role. On the basis of our experience over so many years, we are very much convinced that this kind of alliances working towards a joint goal, which is biodiversity protection, is actually more necessary than ever. But we have to bring this type of thematic area and this type of focus out of the niche where it is still today. And we have to bring it to a bigger stage and make sure that the good examples that have been created with your support on a pilot basis on the ground in some developing countries, that this can be factored in and mainstreamed into the bigger framework, which is going to be the GBF, and especially that it gains much more prominence in the implementation efforts that hopefully are going to be accelerated after the finalization of the COP and the agreement on the new framework. So, I'm really looking forward to a fruitful and inspiring discussion. Thank you to all for participating, especially to our panelists for joining us today. And I wish us a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Hofen, for the introduction to our session, and I also want to join and welcome very warmly also the Director General from the Ministry, the Federal Ministry of the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, which is in charge of also of the International Climate Initiative, which has funded this project. So let's jump into the first round of discussions. We have the why put in the front on the critical how NGOs could support more effective business conservation actions at all, and why it is necessary so. And I'm very pleased to ask now Bianca Brazil from Montreal, still before the breakfast, I think, to come to be with us now. She was following the recent negotiations also on the global biodiversity framework, and I would I would ask her also to say something about how she sees from the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity the role that NGOs can have also to support business in promoting biodiversity conservation. So Bianca, if you are there. We cannot hear her. Just one moment, they're switching. So these are the challenges of
Bianca,
COVID
he's
time.
introducing you now.
Bianca, nice to see you.
Hello. Can you see
Hello.
me? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Hello and good time of the day to all of you. My name is Bianca Brazil, and I am the Program Manager for Business Engagement with the Secretariat of the Convention. I wasn't able to be in person in Marseille, but I'm extremely honored to be able to speak, even though through virtual means. As you all are all aware, governments are currently working on a new global agreement that will chart the path.
They're saying they can't hear you. Bianca, he's introducing you now.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, sorry. Thank you. As you are all aware, governments are currently working on a new global agreement that will chart a path to our planet and our future. The post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, it's a process that was initiated in 2019 with a series of virtual and presential discussions, consultations that included not only governments, but also critical sectors of the society that we hope will help us get the support and action needed to be able to deliver on goals and targets agreed. Just this past Friday, government representatives from the 196 parties to the convention concluded one critical stepping stone in the agreement, the Open-Ended Working Group's third meeting that gave parties, civil society, international organizations, academia, and business representatives the opportunity to discuss targets, goals, and elements in the draft proposal to the framework. These exchanges were extremely valuable, and all the results will certainly help us move forward. The next steps in the process will include an in-person meeting with the technical and scientific body to the CBD, with the subsidiary body of implementation, and the last and concluding portion of the Open-Ended Working Group. These three meetings should all take place in early 2022 to progress negotiations of the post-2020 and prepare ground for the Conference of the Parties that will take place at the end of April in Kunming, China. One of the key elements in all this process and collaboration, the Global Biodiversity Framework, was built and has been perfected with the help, support, and active input from different actors of society. Mainstreaming of biodiversity is at the heart of the process and will be critical, and I cannot think of a better way to exemplify what mainstreaming is all about than highlighting the essential collaboration between civil society and business. The Secretariat launched in 2011, actually, the Global Partnership for Business and Biodiversity, which is a network of networks that brings together different initiatives from all over the world to promote collaboration, communication, and a multi-stakeholder vision to address shared problems. Through our business engagement program, we also liaise with NGOs, business associations, representatives, and broad business and biodiversity community. We are experiencing growing momentum among the business community for positive action for biodiversity. Countless companies have now developed ambitious plans and targets to address the biodiversity loss and climate crisis. We are also seeing a very positive momentum among the financial community, which will be critical to address all these issues. The transition needed from business as usual to a more sustainable reality requires vision, action, and install capacity in businesses of all sizes through the value chains. NGOs have long been supporting these efforts by developing tools, mechanisms, standards, principles, and knowledge products that by discussing and collaborating with companies across the board to help accelerate this transition. This collaboration is critical and much welcome, and we hope that we can see these positive examples of collaboration proliferating and ramping up. I applaud the tireless efforts from GAZ, who have been hugely supportive of the work of the Secretariat, and of course, companies of all sizes and in different sectors throughout the globe. They are helping scaling up these positive partnerships and always opening space for dialogue, collaboration, and pragmatism. We stand ready to support your efforts, and we thank you all for your excellent work. We can only address this existing biodiversity loss emergency if we put our heads together and work side by side. Global problems require global action. So thank you so much for having me, and I hope you all have a great event.
So thank you so much, Bianca, for your speech and for your input. I know that as a program manager for business engagement, you have a crucial role also in the next more years to follow and to help designing also the global biodiversity framework for all the actors. So let's move smoothly on now to India. And to India, good afternoon in India to Tara Matthews. She works with JNT Herbs and Spices at the head of direct farmer sourcing and sustainable supply chains operations. And she currently takes care of the operations in India, Turkey, and Vietnam. Over the years, Tara has been expanding and developing JNT's sourcing strategy to work more closely with farmers to establish a more secure, ethical, and sustainable supply chains. And through her work, she has been able to identify sustainable solutions by understanding root causes of food safety issues and by collaborating with like-minded partners. So Tara, thank you very much as a very important partner also from the private sector to us, and we are very keen to hear from your experiences.
Hi, Andreas. Thank you for your kind introduction. I don't know if you can hear me.
We hear you loud and clear.
Super. So yes, thank you for your introduction, and hello to everyone at Marseille. It's unfortunate that thumbs up really helps.
Sounds okay.
Hello.
Sounds okay. Sounds okay.
Marseille. Unfortunate that some of us can't be present over there physically. And hi to everybody else who's joining us virtually from across the globe. It's indeed a pleasure and privilege to be a speaker at the IUCN World Conservation Congress 2021, especially around the theme Water, Land and Ecosystem and the work that my company does around the theme. Without much further ado, let me speak a bit about what I do and what my company does and how GIZ has helped us in the process. As Mr. Andreas explained, I work with the Herbs and Spice processing company. We are a multinational company with supply chains and processing centers across the globe. Over the recent past, we have slowly started to change our sourcing strategy. I don't know if you can hear me because I cannot see the screen.
Yes, we hear you
I can't
loud
see anybody
and clear.
else.
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
So, excellent. So we've tried to change our sourcing strategy to work more closely with farmers and to source directly at farm gate and also to be more involved at provenance. The reason why we decided to do this was to preserve raw material integrity and also to solve any supply chain and quality issues at the ground. A case in point over here being why we get ourselves involved in the or at the ground is because there are a lot of things related to either food fraud or quality issues which cannot be solved if you're not closely involved with the farmers and what is happening on the ground. So recently we had a problem with the black pepper, which is grown in the Western Ghats. This was primarily because of climate change. India was facing torrential rainfalls, which resulted in landslides, which resulted in torrential like floods, and there was an issue because of this for the quality of the black pepper. So while our teams on the ground were trying to figure out how to solve it, we were also in conversation with GIZ, especially with biodiversity, and it was quite surprising to learn about the correlation between supply chains, quality, and biodiversity. So we got together and we mapped out the biodiversity indicators to see that it had a direct relation to the quality of the black pepper grown in the Western Ghats. So what we tried and did was we conducted focus workshops with the farmers. We did a lot of research, and along with GIZ and UEBT, we realized that one of the issues of the quality of the black pepper was also because of invasive species of the trees grown around and also the monocropping of the farmlands. So we started a pilot project, and over the last 2 years, we have tried and supported farmers and encouraged farmers to go back to indigenous variety of indigenous farming practices, and also to grow indigenous variety of species, and also to sort of diversify the cropping. It's too soon to say the changes that we have seen because it's just been 2 years, but what we hope to try and achieve is a friendly ecosystem which helps farmers for sustenance and also helps us with continuous supply chain in the business. So I must thank GIZ and UEBT for helping us to see how businesses and biodiversity is interlinked, and it definitely helped us in our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tara. And I appreciate very much that you joined us, although virtually from India, to talk a little bit about the experiences that you had within this project and beyond the project. So let me move over to the third speaker of this first round. And this is Nadine Mccormick. She recently joined the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and is manager for the Nature Action Project. And I have to say that together, when she was for 15 years in IUCN, we started the idea of having this event to see how multi-stakeholder activities can foster also the biodiversity conservation. And I'm extremely happy that she will be with us and talks now from a news perspective from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, also about this kind of partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Andreas, for persevering with this topic, because it's one that's very close to my heart, and I couldn't agree more with the comments earlier on that more funding needs to go into supporting the conservation community to help business do it, because it's hard, right? And we don't just go in and work together magically like that. So I think really couldn't agree more, and thank you for highlighting this issue. Yeah, it's one of my favorite questions. We've heard a lot from the opening ceremony, even yesterday. There's growing recognition that no one organization can do this on their own, whether an NGO or a business or a government. We need to work together. Yeah, okay, we've got that now. Like, yes, this is a complex system. Nobody has all the information. We need to pull those different worldviews together and find solutions. So yeah, that's a very technical side. And we heard from Bianca how, we're creating tools and guidelines, and yeah, the biodiversity measurement, this is all very, very important. I'm here to give another message from, the 15 plus years that I've been working with business, is that collaboration is hard. This change that we all need to do is hard. And so you must have, I'm looking all around the room here now, you must have had moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm out of my depth. I don't know this. I feel alone. I'm saying this message. My colleagues aren't even listening to me. What can I do? And I think this is where another role can come for NGOs to support business and governments, especially for companies who are very early in their journey on nature. You'll find a champion in the company. They're like, because they grew up loving birds and frogs at the bottom of their garden, you find that champion. And they are alone, I promise you. The number of companies, the heads of sustainability or head of environment that I've passed, and even at WBCSD now, we have 200 companies trying to work on nature. The honest thing is, they feel alone. They need your help. And so if you're coming along as an NGO, and we think typically you come in and this impression of bashing the business and that'll make them change. Whoever did what their parents told them to do because you have to do it because I told you so. Like, how do we change? This is a very human question. And so I think one of the messages I'd love you to take away, yes, the technical part is very important, but this human part, I promise you, the quality of the relationships that you build will be the determiner of the success of that project. Technical, yes, the quality of the relationship will make a difference. So then how do we build the relationships? Again, back to this very human level. So when I was building capacity with NGOs to work with business at IUCN, often one of the first things is like, we're trying to engage this business, this copper smelting factory, this oil and gas company in a wetlands area. How do we engage the business? It's too massive. Think human. Every system can be broken down to the organizations and to individual human beings who have real human feelings and values, and they want to do the right thing. So my first message would be bring it human and see where your champions are. So if you can find somebody, even if they're not a champion yet, then you need to be aware, like, well, how advanced are they? So the steps you need to remember are awareness of the change, the willingness of the change, and the readiness to make the change. So readiness is all this guidance and blah, blah, blah. NGOs have a great habit of, producing a guide that's like 200 pages. Here you go. Here's how you solve your problem for sourcing black pepper. Who has the time to read a document that's big? So think about, especially if they don't even know they've got a problem. So go back to the beginning. Like, think about your family, people, your colleagues you want to change. Are they aware that there's a problem? Do they know what nature is and how it links to their companies? I love this spices story. We didn't know that biodiversity actually was a problem, but could also be an opportunity. We didn't know. So they make them aware. You make them willing because you link to their operations. Okay, once they're aware and they're willing, then you can come with your guidance, your deep guidance, etc. I think the other thing I would say is then just modify your language as well. And so again, NGOs have a great habit of coming in, and maybe you're speaking English or French, but the company's like, sorry, what are you talking about? And so really translate, your ecosystem services very specifically into language that they would understand. And I'd like to highlight a project I've been working on of the few years, the We Value Nature campaign, .eu, funded by the European Commission. And there we worked with business to develop very easy to understand materials. So what is nature? How does it link to my company, my operations? Some great materials that have been adapted specifically for food and beverage companies. Some more on the way for finance as well. And so really, I'm just thinking of we did a training this morning at 8:30 on a Sunday morning. And so this message around the language came out strongly and clearly. We had Veolia and the IUCN French committee talking about their 14-year partnership. But let me tell you, when they talked about factors of success at the end, they didn't say, oh, IUCN produced really great guidance documents. They said they had a great, trusted relationship. They'd nurtured it, had to work over the years. It was tricky when people left, but ultimately it was down to investing in their dialogue, being honest, and being allowed to have a different opinion and to challenge each other. And then that way we go further together, but also quicker, because, as we've all heard, we don't have time to, go backwards in a relationship because of misunderstanding. So please, your last message is seek that individual in the company, work out what their individual needs are, and tailor your approach accordingly. And then that way we have at least a better hope of trying to get to a nature positive world by 2030. So thank you.
Nadine, thank you so much for highlighting also the human dimension of the hard work we are doing. And we are a little bit behind the agenda. Nevertheless, we want to make a first round of question and answers. If there are anyone, we had some problems with the transmission on the live stream. I would like to highlight that nothing will be lost for the people who are watching us from the internet. This event will be recorded, and later you can have it also on YouTube. So nevertheless, if there are any questions or inputs from the audience here, I would be happy that we have 5 minutes time to direct to the panelists.
Hello. So I run a small NGO in Italy. We work for marine conservation. Now, so I run a small NGO in Italy. We work for marine conservation. We are experiencing more and more companies that are reaching out to us because they want to work with us and support our work. So, you know, sometimes is actually the other way around. So they are starting to reaching out. However, there is always this component of why and how you make it valuable for the company to actually contribute also to your work. So I think that NGO can work with companies on two levels. One is actually helping them to kind of decrease their environmental footprint, look at biodiversity. And the other one is that the private sector can support the work of NGOs by avoiding greenwashing, which is like the threat, the major threat. My question is, sometimes as an NGO, I don't feel prepared to actually help companies to, let's say, write in their sustainable report at the end of the year what meant for them helping a marine conservation NGO and how this report back to, for example, SDG. This is like a sort of statement question for you. So how can we build the capacity also of NGO to be able to communicate the work that we do with the private sector?
I understand this.
I think there were different elements to your question, so I really like the way you flipped it around. There are also benefits for NGOs, and the question wasn't framed that way, but absolutely, as long as we've got our eyes open to what the objectives are. I think the question that you're asking, maybe one, I mean, I'm not sure I have the quick answer right here and there, but I think what's also refreshing is sometimes we don't have the answer, right? The NGO, it's not like a consultant, we have to know everything together. It's like, actually, well, let's explore that together. And I think then it's coming back to, I mean, we look at steps for business to understand the relationship with nature. So there's different steps. You can look at the science-based targets for nature initial guidance. The first step is assess and prioritize. And they've got a great materiality matrix for all different sectors now, where they will say, typically, here will be your impacts and dependencies on nature across the value chain. And therefore, these would then be the priority areas you should engage. And then if we start seeing changes here in both the state of the biodiversity, then you're going to start to see benefits for the company, but also for society. So there's a great resource would be the science-based targets for nature network, the initial guidance. Again, a very dense book. But actually, this gives me a segue to leave now, actually, because part of the problem is we produce a lot of information, business don't readily understand it, so I need to run and beg your apology. We have a session on nature positive now, this new global goal that's emerging for business, and they're like, what's that then? How does that apply to what I'm doing? I'm doing net positive impact on sites, isn't that enough? And so we've broken it down into 6 key messages a business needs to understand that they could then communicate, whether they're in their own company or an NGO could use to communicate to their company. So we're airing them in 40 minutes. So I need to go run to that session. And so I beg my forgiveness to go to Hall 8, number 8, in case you're interested. But thank you so much. And I saw lots of nodding. So really, yeah, you're in it together. Have chats and share your experiences too. Thank you.
If I can add something, lady, I think you have to be focused on your own purpose. Be aware not to spend too much time to try to answer the requirements of companies and be focused on what is your unique purpose. If not, you can be eaten very fast by requirements that could be changing fast. Then please be focused. Be clear what you have to do, and you give some data, if okay, but not too much.
Thank you very much, Nadine. And we will have another question and answer session later on. Looking at the time, I think it's better we move on to the second round now. that is dedicated to the what, and we will concentrate on 3 concrete examples and have 2 of the people here in Marseille. He's has more than 10 years of scientific research track and over 15 years working with experience in business and biodiversity and the Global Nature Fund. And he's internationally recognized expert in the management of biodiversity in companies. He's working for the Global Nature Fund as an NGO, and they are working on the entire supply chain. We are quite interested, and we worked also within our project very close together on different tools also for companies. And I'm very happy that he will give us a short insight also on the work Global Nature Fund is doing on the integration of biodiversity into company policies. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Andreas. Please allow me to stand up, otherwise I cannot see my slides. So you might start my presentation, please. Now it's going to be about banana and pineapples. It's actually another IKI project financed again by the German Ministry of Environment. And we do this project together with our precious colleagues from the GIZ in Costa Rica and Dominican Republic. And it's beautiful to have you here actually, so that you can see what we do with your money and and also what we can really achieve when we link projects like IKI huge projects to one another, and when we generate kind of an exchange between those projects. Next slide, please. Well, actually, we are having a high-level lunch, and we are in France, so I thought maybe you've eaten also. It will not make you hungry to sort my points a bit after a menu. So, what is the miracle of mainstreaming biodiversity in the logistic chains and the supply chains? And from our experience, the really first step is to do a good research on the business's needs. And also find a good timing. You must prepare yourself well. You must find out what is the company actually doing, where are they active, in which fields of the business, and then you are also you will be able to talk at the same level with those people. We developed some really helpful tools. This would be the second important point. We call it Biodiversity Check. We call it Biodiversity Performance Tool. We call it Biodiversity Action Plan. These are different tools, and a company might choose from those approaches, let's call it like this, what is really relevant for them and what fits to their needs and what fits to their priorities. This is also important to be flexible from an NGO side's point of view. This is something we also learned very much. Well, actually, in the cooperation, this is also what we heard before, it's also very important to understand the company's needs and to understand their priorities inside. And for example, one example is to explain well the business case. What we hear currently from companies we work with in Germany and beyond is that biodiversity is one of the upcoming really issues to work on. And well, this is very good to see that companies do understand this in the meanwhile, and actually opens, of course, somehow the doors for our approaches and for our work. Very important when you understand the needs of the companies is to, well, actually support the internal processes, to support internal and external communication, and help them to also create spin-offs, to find interrelationships with other businesses, to really learn from what they are doing. And this is for us as an NGO also very important. 15 years working in this field of business and management of biodiversity in businesses. We also must learn. We must also have adapted strategies. We must adapt our approaches, and this is what we do day by day. And well, with the work, it goes also. You must also be open to work with the big ones. Many NGOs, at least in Germany, do not want to do that. They refrain from working with companies like Nestle and Daimler and Rewe because they, well, are the big ones, the bad ones maybe. But if those come, just what we just heard, and ask for help, yeah, who are we? not to offer help in the problems and the situation they have. We are the biodiversity experts. They are no biodiversity expert. They are experts in their business, and their business is actually what they should do and must do, because we need the products in our daily life, and so it's our role to really help them to manage biodiversity in their business and to find the right way to do that. Yeah, create an atmosphere of mutual understanding, adaptive management. This is a bit repetitive of what my former speaker just said. Yeah, and recognize and support allies in the company. Also, this is the same. You will always find people dedicate, and it's really beautiful to see that even more people show up in those companies. These are the right people, the ambassadors, our ambassadors of biodiversity, so to say, in the companies. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think worldwide, with a focus on Europe, in the meanwhile, we did like 250 biodiversity checks, biodiversity action plans, application of the biodiversity performance tools. Actually, we started to count. We stopped to count because we lost a bit the overview in 15 years, so it's very successful. Andreas mentioned the cooperation in India and with Mexico, where we were able to support a bit. Coming back to this project, Del Campo al Plato, from farm to fork, I'm kind of here on behalf of that project. Just some evidence and figures for success. We applied the biodiversity check on 60 farms, which means 25,000 hectares. This is the figures from end of July when we did our monitoring on the project progress in Dominican Republic and Costa Rica. We have biodiversity action plans actually foreseen on 15,000 hectares, over 200 farmers and assessors. So assessors, kind of multipliers, participate in our trainings in both countries. And coming from the field to the really supply chains, we established a cooperation with the certifiers like Fairtrade, Rainforest Alliance, Demeter, Global Gap, and Sustainably Grown. And in the meanwhile, we can say that 100% of certified banana and pineapple sold in Germany, at least, kind of are impacted by the work of the project Del Campo al Plato. We have a very good cooperation with the big banana five, let's call it like this, Chiquita, Dole, Del Monte, and Five, so working with the big ones, which have a market share, at least in Germany, of around 90%. So yeah, this is what mainstreaming is about. Find the big, where you can really, with few impact, achieve a lot. And next year, and now you could switch to the next slide, we want to start a campaign together with German wholesalers. Some of them already committed themselves to contribute to this campaign, and with the certifiers, something also which will help the mainstreaming get to the consumers, make the consumers understand that actually they will decide what products will be produced in Costa Rica and Dominican Republic. Actually, with those figures, it's starting to get fun working on business and biodiversity, because actually can achieve some really a lot. You can create with those companies, you can really create an impact on large scale, and this is really, well, actually for a conservationist like myself, as I said, it starts to make fun in the meanwhile. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And I would try once again if we can hear some more thoughts from Simrise once again, if it's possible, because it's a pity that you could not end the presentation. Maybe we have a little bit of luck now. Sasha, can you hear us?
I hope. I heard you perfectly, but I understood the sound into the other directions, the objectives. Do you hear me, Andreas?
Yes, I can hear you. You have to speak a little bit louder, but I can hear you.
Okay, so so I was just telling you who Simrise is, the B2B companies serving food and fast-moving consumer goods companies as an ingredient provider, and that our raw material portfolio consists of many natural resources from different kinds of origin, and that means that our company is highly dependent on biodiversity and ecosystem service, and that we have really understood that we need to promote the objective of the UN Biodiversity Convention in order to do good business also into the future. I assume my presentation is not yet visible, so but we can continue like this, it's okay. So mainstreaming biodiversity at swimmers can mean a lot of different things. Oh, I'm already on the next slide. So here you have an overview of all the different areas of activities which we have to keep in mind when managing biodiversity in our company. And of course, the strong focus of our activities is on the supply chain, but there are also other challenges we as a company have to solve. For example, regulatory challenges in conjunction with biodiversity and ecosystem services, but also responsible production processes and so on and so forth. And we skip to the next slide, where I provide you a short overview of activities we are currently doing with NGOs together. So this shows you a roadmap with different countries where our strategic biological resources originate, at least some of them. And what we do in terms of collaboration is working together with the Gsat as our global lead partner in this public-private partnership in different countries where we try to implement good agricultural practices, but also good selection practices in strategic supply chain to our company. As you all know, biodiversity is a highly locally specific topic, and so that means that when we want to manage biodiversity in the supply chain, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. And what we really need here when promoting these projects is expertise from local NGOs who know the ecological context, who know the local risk drivers for biodiversity, and who can help us to implement locally adapted solutions for the agricultural and ecological activity for biodiversity. On the next slide, this is a short overview about the spectrum of NGOs we are working with. So, starting point of all our activities in the supply chain is, of course, a proper assessment of raw material sustainability or non-sustainability. And here we rely on data and information provided by different non-governmental organizations such as IUCN, where we are linked directly to assess the conservation status of our raw materials, but also many different information such as geographic information. When it comes to supply chain management, it's not only about data and information, it's also about the provision of guidance, of principles and criteria which we have to respect as a company if we want to promote biodiversity in our supply chain. And as I already indicated, where we are directly engaging on the ground, local knowledge of NGOs is really key. And it's not only about the environmental knowledge of the local situation, it's also about knowledge of social aspects and not only the environmental resources of the here for our country. On the last slide, I summarized this on which NGOs help us in which area of activity, and I would like to conclude my short intervention with the conclusion that NGOs to us today are absolutely critical as a data provider, as a provider of guidance, as a provider of principles and criteria, but we expect in the future that the role of NGOs in our company will increase. And the role of NGOs for business is not only relevant for management practices in the company, the role of NGOs from our perspective is also getting more and more important when it comes to the pressure into the different systems which are relevant and to tackle the global biodiversity. Assuming that my 5 minutes are over, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking very much forward to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sasha. And I apologize that the sound was a little bit hard to listen, but we have a documentation later on, and I hope everyone has then the chance also to see once again your slides later on. So let us move on, and I'm very happy to welcome Nastya Timoshina here with us from Traffic. She's the Senior Program Coordinator for Sustainable Trade, and in her role she coordinates work around advising governments and developing better regulations to ensure trade is sustainable, developing private sector standards and engaging business and facilitating consumer behavioral change close to the CITES Convention. And I'm very happy that you are with us, because we are also exchanging on our experiences in how to convince the private sector for more sustainable trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make my way to the presentation. You've just had a preview of the slides, but let's start again. Okay, so thank you for the introduction and many thanks for having me here. So Traffic is an NGO, so it's appropriate to be here. We work on wildlife trade. So the objective of Traffic's work is to ensure wildlife trade is not a threat to conservation of nature. Business engagement is critical in that. We deal with trade, businesses involved in trade. So the way Traffic is dealing with this is with two major purposes. One of them is to ensure that illegal wildlife trade, wildlife crime is out of supply chains, and this is both with the purpose of actually businesses engaged in illegal activities not pursuing it, but also to ensure that those companies who may be unwittingly involved in illegal wildlife trade are not doing this. And there are some really innovative and interesting collaborations in this space. Traffic is co-facilitating, for example, Coalition to End Wildlife Trafficking Online, which involves 44 global companies that over the past few years have taken down 4 million advertisements from online platforms, and it includes Facebook, TikTok, a lot of other platforms globally and in particular regions. We work with transport sectors. We work with financial sector more and more increasingly for them to divest from illegal wildlife trade. It's a tricky business to sort out, but it's really, really important. The second objective of our work with business is to ensure that where trade is legal, it can be sustainable, fair and traceable, and more increasingly safe. So clearly the current pandemic has brought to light a very different set of challenges. We work a lot trying to understand how the well-managed supply chains can actually mitigate health risks and can bring benefits to people and nature. So just to give some examples of this, we work with some sectors that are very obvious. We work in the marine trade sector. We work on, for example, on sharks traceability systems. We work in the timber trade sector, which is about critical flows of timber from tropical forests to China, to Europe, and so on. We work in a lot more obscure sector, which actually this event is touching on a lot. So trade in wild plant ingredients that are used in cosmetics and food, gin, lots of different products. And our lessons are, in this space where we're promoting best practices, I think our lesson is that there is a lot that these best practices can generate. They can help save species that are targeted by trade. They can help save landscapes, and they also can help people. And I think that's really, really important focus to keep in mind. I'm going to give you one example, and conveniently, we're still in Western Ghats, which is where the PBAB project has implemented this pilot. It's one of the world's most biodiverse hotspots. This is really important. This is where a lot of the biodiversity is coming from. We're working here with a local partner, and I cannot take credit for this work. This is about the local NGO doing the action on the ground called Applied Environmental Research Foundation. The subject of our story is bibitaki. Bibitaki, I'm sure you have not heard the name. If you did, I'd be very surprised. But it is one of the 3 ingredients in the world's most popular Ayurvedic formula. In Germany, in the UK, in the US, Triphala is the most popular Ayurvedic formula that helps digestion, which is probably why it's the most popular formula. This species is a fruit. It's a fruit of a tree, so technically you could harvest it sustainably. The problem is always about the benefits and the access and the use. So people used to cut the trees because sell one tree, you get $100. The trees are they're majestic, beautiful trees that are nesting sites for 2 species of hornbills. at this stage, those of you who love birds should be kind of really excited by it. And that's how it works, because this is how the sustainable trade and the benefits could work. So through the action, Traffic is supporting something called Fair Wild Standard, which is a robust set of framework on wild harvesting only, wild harvesting of plants and benefits to people. So through this project that has been now working for 7 or 8 years, there is over 1,000 haritaki trees that have been safeguarded, 6 nesting sites of hornbills, and a lot of collectors benefiting. This is happening in the sacred groves, so there is a lot of link to traditional knowledge, to how people perceive it. But an important part of it, and I've put this lovely tea box in the middle, this project would not be possible in how it's been implemented without the engagement and years of investment of a business. And this wasn't easy. I mean, it's so hard for business. It's a consistent investment and support to those supply chains. And I know those of you here from business know exactly what I mean. It's hard, but it's really worth it. And it's really important for sustainability of business. And I'm going to finish on the subject of back to our subject of our conversation. What is the role of NGOs in biodiversity conservation and value chains? Well, I think NGOs can and do draw attention to pressing but hidden issues. And that could be about particular supply chain or ingredient or something you just didn't think about. What are those risks and opportunities? It's about establishing, piloting, showcasing best practices. There is a lot of great expertise. Just before me, there was great contribution on this as well. It's about scaling up good practices. NGOs can't do the business job. We're not a business. But I think together we can achieve quite a lot. Multi-stakeholder forums and engagement. And is that engagement with the local communities as well? You know, I'm not a good representative of local community. I'm sitting in Cambridge in the UK. I'm not based in the field. But I think the opportunity for NGOs to forge this connection and bring together local NGOs and representation is massive. Policy process engagement, NGOs are extremely active at advocating particular targets. We're here at the Congress, of course, talking much about this. And influencing consumer practices. And I think this is important, and this is something that business should be aware and actually using as well. NGOs have an increasingly strong voice around behavioral change for consumers. So it's something where we could be working together better, bringing together information about green, biodiversity-friendly supply chains, but also putting attention to where the problems are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nastya. And let's move on smoothly to the last round, the how, and talk a little bit about the support, what NGO needs to be able to fulfill their role, and see it also from different viewpoints. And I'm very happy to see Claude Fromageau with us here. He's involved with organizations such as ORE, the Foundation for Research on Biodiversity, the French National Museum of Natural History, and the United Nations. And since 2000, he has been the administrator for the Yves Rocher Foundation, committed to preserving biodiversity. In addition, Claude stands in the name of ORE as a member of the Global Partnership for Business and Biodiversity of the CBD, which was also named by Bianca Brazil in the beginning. So I'm very happy to hear your consideration of the theme. Thank you.
Thank you to you. Thank you to GIZ for the invitation. What I could say to you, I could say my experience starts from a small village in West France, very poor region, where the NGO and the non-profit organization was absolutely crucial to make us able to develop local development of preservation of nature, creating a very nice exhibition of photo with more than 300,000 people visiting each summer, making some new botanical garden with a network of botanical gardens. Then I have the experience on the field that the company can act only if the company is in a relationship with non-profit, with NGO and with academic and with local representatives. Further, in the time, we developed a lot of issues concerning, for example, the protocol of Nagoya, how to source plants worldwide, in France, but worldwide, and how to source that with a good way. And again, the NGOs are absolutely crucial from Bonn Convention in 2000 to start the experimentation of the protocol in Nagoya. Nagoya is has been signed very after, but we have had the possibility, the opportunity to experience in Madagascar, in some countries, the way to combine the flow of economic activity and the preservation of local activity, social activity. And for that, again, the NGO has been absolutely crucial to develop non-monetary benefit sharing, for example, because monetary is quite easy, but non-monetary benefit sharing is absolutely key to make the company and the NGO and the network of actors settle on the territory. Then back to field, back to earth is the motto for the relationship between NGOs and companies. And at the same time, we have got the opportunity to develop a network of 500 NGO worldwide concerning the new way to be developing solidarities, because economics has to find anthropologic way to make new kind of solidarities on the field again. But now I want to say to you, the companies are like giants. They are very powerful, very strong, very skillful, but they are very weak. We are weak concerning how way to understand and to operate on the field. For example, in agriculture, in agroecology, how you can imagine that the big companies are skillful on the field. It's not possible. It's the same for the carbon footprint. We are completely out of the game. We need some skill for some people enlighten us on how to tackle this kind of issue. And I am very, very cautious today because we are facing a new time, a new turn in the worldwide because of the crisis of Anthropocene. I think that we are facing some danger. We have to be cautious that the company didn't take the territories and the landscape as their own opportunity. It could be a kind of neo-colonialism. We have to be very, very cautious. And in that way, NGOs and non-profit organizations and politics and local representatives are absolutely key to maintain the companies as us in the right way. And to achieve that, I think that the GPBB, the GIZ, as a platform from dialogue, are a perfect place to share, to discuss, to confront our position. And the GPBB, and Bianca spoke about that some minutes ago, the GPBB is a nice opportunity because more than 60 countries are changing, as we saw in India, in Costa Rica, and everywhere. We are sharing some experience on the field. And that is very interesting because we compare, we have not the same kind of things. For example, if you compare the soil in tropical region and in our region, it's completely different. It's absolutely not the same paradigm. Then we have to share together to better understand what is really on the field, what is really possible, what is really, and in addition, what is a time lab. Because companies are very stressed, are very fast, and on the field, we have to be very cautious to go step by step in the time of the nature cycle. Then that was my wish to share with you the importance of GPBB, the Global Partnership Business and Biodiversity, because it's place, platform for dialogue together. And again, thank you very much. And thank you to you because what you achieve is fantastic.
Thank you very much, Claude. It has been a long session, but still I'm waiting for one important input by Julia Oliva, the Deputy Director of the Union for Ethical Biotrade. She will join us from Amsterdam. And UEBT is a non-profit supporting company working with ingredients from biodiversity in the food and beverages, beauty, fragrance, and natural pharmaceutical sectors. And it's also a hybrid between NGO and working close together with companies. So Julia, we know very well your work because it was also very close with the private business action endeavor and the projects, and a lot of companies here I also know you at UEBT. You're currently leading the work on membership policy and access and benefit sharing. So I would be happy that at last input you can also share with us your insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. It's lovely to be with you, even virtually. I'm sorry to not be in the room with so many friends, but happy to share a few words with you. Indeed, UEBT is a non-profit association promoting the sourcing with respect of ingredients from biodiversity used for food, cosmetics, herbal teas, spices, fragrances, a whole range of things. And we're very happy to have Yajanti, Simrise, and Yves Rocher as members. And companies are moving forward on biodiversity. We've heard these 3 examples here today. And this is only really further strengthened by the urgency of the biodiversity and the climate crisis, the fact that consumers are demanding it, and we've seen that only grow with the years, and also, of course, the commitments that companies make in the context of, for instance, Nature Action Plan that the CBD Secretariat is coordinating. So the interest is there, the need is there, and the question is how? How do we do this? And Claude just mentioned companies don't necessarily have the answers. Now, NGOs may not also have the perfect answer, but I think the combination of bringing only together, and this is, I think, what Claude was saying, can we together develop these answers? Because the journey is important, the awareness, the commitments, but ultimately what we need is impact on the ground. So how do we make companies and NGOs, how do we have a positive impact on the ground? And I think that NGOs need support around 4 key issues. The first is sectoral approaches, right? NGOs are in a key position to help not only one company, but a group of companies that can jointly advance on pre-competitive issues. Now, the Carnaúba initiative that's been mentioned today has been a great example of how, to avoid any disruptions in the supply chain and market problems, companies come together to address really the core of the difficulties for sustainability and livelihoods in that supply chain. So I think that's a very important example, and I think NGOs, again, need support to work at that level, the sectoral level. Another key role that NGOs can have is to really make sure that business and biodiversity discussions are bottom up and top down. You need to have that dialogue along the supply chain. You need to have the brands talk to the ingredient suppliers, talk to the producers. And NGOs, and this is also a big part of the work UEBT does, are uniquely placed to make this discussion happen. You can't just work on the ground and hope that that will come up to the markets. And I know we're doing an interesting study supported by Gsat on what makes a biodiversity ingredient succeed in the market. We need to know that before we invest on the ground. We need to bring together the top and the bottom of supply chains. So that's the second aspect, this communication between stakeholders, where I think NGOs need further support. The third is a focus on not necessarily new, but improved approaches, right? I think one of the challenges of these times is that there's a lot of new ideas, and it's very easy to get lost in trying to say, okay, what is the new tool? What is the new platform? And I think particularly for companies, it's very important to build on what they're already doing. And I think we have some interesting examples here. So for instance, UEBT and Rainforest Alliance have come together to offer a joint program for herbal teas and spices just to avoid duplication. Another great example, I think, is the Biodiversity Action Plans, which UEBT developed jointly with the Global Nature Fund and GIZ. So rather than all work separately, come together and build on existing tools and use those within the different constituencies. So I think that's a third sector where support is very important. And last but not least, enabling environments. NGOs should, of course, be working with business, but should not forget that it's very important, and they need the support to do it, is to get the enabling environment so that companies not only can choose to be biodiversity friendly, but are really pushed to do it. Claude mentioned the Nagoya Protocol, which was an international agreement that is translated in rules around the world that has really promoted further compliance with biodiversity friendly practices. All of the due diligence laws that are coming online in France, in Germany, also in the Netherlands, are very important tools and very necessary in pushing this forward. So with that, Andreas, again, my thanks, and hopefully next time we meet in person.
Yes, thank you so much, Julia. And this is nearly also the closing remarks. We are a little bit out of time, but maybe we can hear about one or two questions still. Charlotte in Germany, do you hear us? Is there something that we can share? No? So let me ask me in the panel, you want to say something? Okay.
Is this a question and answer? Yes? Thank you so much, Andrea. It's always my pleasure to see you. I am wondering about, talking back the Maria Julia comments about the bottom-up approach, and then Thomas, and then Anastasia, and you're talking about enterprises. You are talking about the big potatoes. But what about the local or small-scale fisheries, for instance? Sometimes they are willing to participate, but the capacity, it is simply over the hands. So how can we handle these amazing experiences like culinary conservation, where we are trying to engage the consumers on the original, on the fruits or the seafood, but at the end, even with the commitment of the communities, you don't have the chance to supply all the year.
Hi, my name is Rick Scobie. I'm the new executive director of Traffic, where Nastia works. One of the recurrent messages and motifs of this fantastic session has been the need and the opportunity to scale up. Everyone has shared great examples at the small scale. And the real challenge, which Ingrid said in her opening remarks, is how do we move this to a global scale when we have such incredible opportunity with the Global Biodiversity Agreement, the Climate Change Convention, the concern of moving from building back better in the post-COVID world. So I guess I would particularly ask Julia and Claude, what's your advice on opportunities to scale up? Because I'm worried about the proliferation of many small individual nonprofit interventions, the growing proliferation of different platforms. And I'm sorry that GIZ and BMZ have had to leave temporarily, because I wonder if there's a role for an important global partner like Germany to actually convene at a higher level a true global alliance to move this to scale. For example, the way that we're seeing UK playing as the presidency of the Climate Change Convention on the Climate Agreement. Thanks.
Well, I have no solution. If I could have, I could be very, very happy. But to answer two set of questions, I think that we can embark the small company or the small actors as a restaurant or very, very small, if we act on the territory. Because if a big one, a big potato, acts locally, sometimes, and we have experience in botany, we have people around, farmers, small actors, small NGO, small startup that are coming and making the noise and feeling more comfortable to act and to develop the business in the good way. That is the first answer. The second one, I have no answer. I am very afraid about the economic and the need of data and measurement and My understanding now, and we try in France to develop new tools, is if we could target a new accounting, a new finance measurement of the efficiency of companies, it could be the best way to integrate nature in our capital. But I am very afraid that the finance world, as often, could make some short-term business model to collect and to make the same game as before. Then my concern is how to develop new accounting program, accounting and worldwide accounting dimension that make the measurement of efficiency of companies not linked only on money, on performance concerning consumer, but taking account about the capital of nature. And we still have some beginning of study and models, and I think it could be a very nice opportunity. But frankly speaking, I am very cautious, and well, I don't know. I have no other answers.
Thank you very much. Maybe to your question, the reason why we work with the large certification schemes is exactly this. Yeah, we never want to invent new certifications or whatever. We trust in Rainforest Alliance and Global Gap and the other partners we work with. And from our point of view, this is still the right approach to support these these huge players worldwide, which have a huge impact on not only on banana and pineapple, what I just showed, but also on cacao, on coffee, on Global Gap. I think they have like 150,000 member farms or certified farms worldwide. So this is maybe a bit of the answer to you. What we anyway need, and this comes to maybe to your question, thank you very much, is adaptive tools. Yeah, our biodiversity check, we invented this in 2008, and in the meanwhile we have many derivatives which go back to the same idea. But what we invented to work with smallhold farmers, for example, is a biodiversity check convoy, what we call. So with a corporation of smallhold farmers, for example, we don't do that with 150 2 or 4 hectare farms, but with the whole consortium, so to say, to really understand how the farmers, which anyway have each of them has a very small impact, of course, on biodiversity, but the whole group might cover several hundred hectares, and they anyway must work together to improve biodiversity in their surrounding. So this is a bit the answer maybe to you. And we work with coffee, and you know that coffee is mainly supplied by smallhold farmers, but also we work with banana, and they're mainly in Dominican Republic. It's the smallhold farmers which are Demeter certified, which are fair trade certified, and so on, who deliver to European markets. And yeah.
So Julia was asked also to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. So fully agree. I think this is what Thomas just said in terms of adaptive tools for smaller companies. Now, I'm not knowledgeable about fisheries, but I do know that another aspect that helps in other types of supply chains is that you need the big players supporting their local suppliers. They cannot just say, these are our new requirements because it's what the market wants. You need to have the support to make those changes on the ground. Otherwise, as you said, it's too tall in order to expect small companies, traditional fishermen to change their practices, I imagine, as other types of producers. And with regards to the second question, I just wanted to say I fully share.
Her smile, yeah. Okay, let's guess what she wanted to say. Unfortunately, could you repeat the last sentence?
Sorry, I was just agreeing that Germany may play a role in kind of bringing these issues home, trying to get to the point of positive impact. And there may be some low-hanging fruit, some issues where there's already work happening in different organizations and at different levels, and we really need to all come together to have that impact. So for me, moving from commitment to action, critical, and takes working together. So I'd fully agree with that.
So Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I would like to thank very much those people who had the patience to stay until the end. We had some obstacles and some challenges to work with, but I'm very happy that we could manage to have you all together, and mostly with positive and motivating messages on the spaces that we want to create. A lot of things were addressed regarding also the concrete impact we need. And at the end, also the comments showed very much, which is also lessons learned that we have to include the whole value chain and work all together with and look also for specific answer for the small and medium enterprises and the small farmers along and see where are the responsibilities are also to have this big change that all we need in biodiversity conservation. So thank you very much. I hope you could take something out of it and you are motivated to move on in this big task that we have all together. Thank you.
Thank you to the team, to you and to Merle that organize a lot of things. Yeah.
I have a word with you. I am Nelly, I am the winner.